The atmosphere aboard the space station was tense with excitement as representatives from various species gathered in the Grand Hall. A cultural exchange event, the first of its kind, was about to begin, and humanity was eager to show its best. The humans were excited to display their unique human traits, from their sense of humor to their surprisingly unpredictable physical strength. The alien girl, a representative of the Zythar race, stood by the grand entrance, adjusting her ceremonial attire. With shimmering violet scales, a lithe figure, and long tentacles that resembled flowing hair, she was unlike anything the humans had seen. She was, of course, out of place, especially when it came to the more intimate topics that were likely to come up in such exchanges. And yet, her presence was captivating. The aliens in the room whispered to each other, exchanging glances as they observed her alien beauty. And then there was him, the human. A janitor. And not just any janitor, but the last-minute stand-in for a speaker who had failed to show up. He wore the standard blue jumpsuit of the station's maintenance crew, his hair a bit ruffled from his hurried appearance. He had no place in this event, but here he was. The humans had a habit of making things work out, even if it wasn't always according to plan. It was supposed to be a peaceful, intellectual exchange. But then something strange happened. A figure, hidden in the back of the room, had activated a mood-altering device, a strange arousal beam designed to cause uncontrollable attraction to whoever it hit. The alien girl, unaware of what was coming, felt the beam blast her directly. She froze, her body caught in the middle of an unfamiliar wave of emotions. Her heart raced, but she couldn't understand why. Was this some kind of ritualistic display? Maybe it was something humans did in their culture to create tension? But the real chaos began when the human stepped in. He had seen the flash from across the room and immediately assumed that something dangerous was happening. With a heroic rush, he dashed to the alien girl's side, prepared to shield her from whatever was about to strike. And he took the hit. The arousal beam hit him square in the chest, and everything changed. Instead of reacting in a way that anyone could predict, like a normal person would, he stood there, mouth agape, his face flushed a deep red. His chest tightened, not from fear, but from an entirely different, more unsettling sensation. Every muscle in his body seemed to react to the alien girl in the strangest of ways. He opened his mouth to say something, but all that came out were words about her sinuous movements, her captivating grace, and how her tail fit so perfectly into her silhouette. The words seemed to spill out of him, each one more absurd and inappropriate than the last. The alien girl blinked in confusion. Was he complimenting her tail, or her intelligence? In her culture, she assumed it was the latter, given how often humans were inclined to compliment each other for things that weren't always physical. But the words he said sounded so off. Was he making some kind of subtle move? Or was he just trying to be nice? The human, meanwhile, had no idea why he was suddenly becoming so flirtatious. He had always been shy, awkward even, but this was something else. It was like every moment he spent near her, he was becoming more infatuated by the second. He couldn't help it. It was as if the beam had unlocked a deep, primal part of his brain that only recognized the alien girl as irresistible. A small laugh escaped from him as he noticed her staring at him, eyes wide in confusion. It was ridiculous. He was acting like a teenager, but the attraction was real, and he had no control over it. She wasn't even trying to get him to notice her like this. It was just, well, inexplicable. Your tentacles, he began, his voice cracking. I mean, they're almost like hair, that moves so fluidly. She stared at him, completely baffled. What was he talking about? No one ever complimented her tentacles. In fact, they were often considered a bit strange by other species. The entire thing seemed so ridiculous, and yet there he was, his eyes wide and lost in her features. The human rubbed his neck awkwardly, clearing his throat. His words, however, only seemed to get worse. And your scales. They're shiny, but also, they look so tough, but… He stopped himself, realizing that the conversation had quickly spiraled into utter nonsense. The alien girl shook her head, looking over at the other guests in the room. They were watching with an amused gaze, whispering and snickering at what appeared to be a social disaster. She wanted to ask him if he was okay, but instead, she simply nodded slowly, thinking maybe this was just how humans acted in some sort of mating ritual. Yeah, I'm just, The human stammered again, unsure of what to do next. His body was practically on fire, but all he could do was say inappropriate things in the most awkward manner possible. You have a great, proportional build. I mean, for someone of your species. You have, like, an ideal, balance between strength and elegance. The alien girl took a step back, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. She still didn't know how to respond. She glanced at the bystanders, hoping for some sort of explanation. But the humans and aliens around her were laughing, some muttering. They must be dating. How could she explain this? How could she communicate that she was being hit by a strange alien emotional state, completely misinterpreting his behavior? The human, though, wasn't concerned with anyone else's perception. He was too deep in his own overwhelming desire to notice how ridiculous he was acting. His flirtations only escalated as he continued to blurt out mating facts and inappropriate compliments, too loud, too real. All he could do was keep his thoughts locked in the foggy haze created by the beam, his instincts pushing him toward her, making him unintentionally seductive. The alien girl thought he was trying to flirt, but he was just utterly lost in his own head, looking for a way to explain his bizarre behavior. It was clear now that the situation was completely out of control, and it wasn't just about the alien girl anymore. It was about him, trying to navigate this new world of attraction that he didn't ask for. And as much as he wanted to stop, all he could do was keep talking. The human's attempts to recover only seemed to make things worse. He tried to clear his throat, hoping it would somehow reset his brain, but instead, he blurted out the most ridiculous things that no one had asked for. He realized too late that he couldn't stop himself. He wanted to be polite, but his mind was clouded by some alien pheromone-induced haze that made everything sound like a bad pickup line. You know, he began, his voice getting lower than he intended. I've always wondered about how your species manages to, balance strength with, grace. He was gripping his collar so tightly it was as though he could strangle his own thoughts into submission. But every word that came out just made him sound like he was infatuated. The alien girl blinked in confusion, her tentacles twitching awkwardly as she processed his words. Was he complimenting her, or did he just make a completely inappropriate comment? It didn't help that every time he looked at her, his face turned a deeper shade of red. She tilted her head slightly, trying to make sense of it all, but the human just kept going, unaware that his words were causing more confusion than understanding. I mean, your movements are so, fluid, the human continued, mentally cursing himself as he spoke. Like your tail is almost poetic in the way it, swishes. Her eyes widened slightly, unsure whether to laugh or run away. She had never been complimented like this before. Her species didn't talk about their tails in such a strange, almost fascinated manner. Most races were more respectful, not openly obsessing over such physical traits. She took a small step back, wondering if the human was actually sick. Perhaps humans had some form of flu that caused uncontrollable attraction. Was that why he was acting so strangely? But even as she wondered this, she couldn't deny there was something oddly charming about him. Maybe this was just how humans expressed their appreciation. She had heard about their strange, often unfiltered ways of communication. This, however, was a bit much. Her silence only seemed to fuel him further, pushing him to make even more absurd statements. I mean, I bet your species doesn't even know how beautiful it is, Like, every detail of your anatomy is so unique. So, perfect, he stammered, practically biting his tongue to hold back more embarrassing words. The human was now a mess of awkwardness, lost in his own confusion about what was happening to him. At this point, the alien girl was no longer confused about the human's physical state. His eyes were practically glued to her, his face flushed, his body tense. She thought back to the earlier moments of the event. The flash of light from the strange device now made sense. She had read about mood-altering devices before, though she'd never expected to experience one firsthand. She realized what had happened. He had taken the hit intended for her. Only now, instead of him protecting her, he was acting like he had fallen head over heels for her. Are you feeling all right? She asked, now genuinely concerned. She didn't know how to fix this. He had already made such a fool of himself that she wasn't sure what to say. Her people didn't flirt like this, they just didn't. She had no way to understand this outburst. I'm fine, the human responded quickly, though his wide eyes and the nervous twitch of his hands said otherwise. Just, feeling a little hot under the collar. He wasn't even sure what he meant by that. Was it a joke? Was it a sexual innuendo? Did it even matter at this point? He had already said too much. He tried to adjust the collar again, but found himself awkwardly tugging at it without any real sense of control. His mind kept flashing to her, her smooth skin, the way her eyes glowed under the soft lighting, the sway of her tail. Why was his brain doing this? Why couldn't he focus? He needed to stop talking. But of course he couldn't. I mean, he continued, doing everything in his power to salvage the situation, but only making it worse. Your species, the Zythar, you've got this natural balance, right? Strength, beauty, grace, all in perfect harmony. And then you have me, just this human, clumsy, awkward. He trailed off, realizing he'd just insulted himself in front of her. The alien girl was caught in a dilemma. She had no idea what was happening, but she couldn't help but feel the unease creeping in. Here was this human, doing everything wrong, saying everything wrong, and yet there was something so endearing about it. Maybe it was the fact that he had taken the hit for her, or maybe it was how genuinely awkward he was being about everything. Look, the alien girl said, her voice suddenly serious. I don't know if this is some kind of human ritual, or if you're just not feeling well, but… She paused, her tentacles shifting nervously. Please stop complimenting me like that. The human blinked, taken aback for a moment. Did she just tell him to stop? His first instinct was to apologize, but before he could say a word, she spoke again, her tone a little softer this time. I mean, she continued, I'm just confused. I don't know what's going on. I think you're sick. The human looked down at his feet, trying to come up with a response that didn't involve more awkward flirtations. Yeah, I think I might have caught something, but not exactly sick, you know? He awkwardly chuckled, rubbing his neck again. It's weird. I didn't mean to, go overboard. At this point, the entire room had shifted from silent observation to loud whispers. Aliens were casting curious glances toward the pair, some muttering to each other. Human and alien observers alike were trying to piece together what had happened. Were they dating? Was this some kind of cultural misunderstanding? Or was the human truly infatuated with her? The alien girl couldn't help but feel a pang of embarrassment. No one knew what was going on, least of all her. But there was something in the way the human stumbled through his words and acted like a lovesick fool that left her conflicted. Well, she said, trying to ease the awkward tension in the air. I guess you could use a little help, huh? The human, still trying to compose himself, nodded too quickly. Yeah, I could, use some help, figuring this out. His face was beet red now. He felt like he was going to burst. If only he could stop saying ridiculous things, he could try to explain himself. Instead, he stood there, feeling more exposed than he had ever been in his life, trapped by the overwhelming effects of the mood-altering beam, unable to do anything but keep making an absolute fool of himself. The rumors about the human and the alien girl had spread like wildfire, and with every whisper, the tension in the air grew thicker. By the time the event was winding down, the human was more embarrassed than he'd ever been in his life. Every time he tried to open his mouth to explain, another completely inappropriate compliment came out. He had hoped it would stop. He hoped that maybe, just maybe, the effects of the mood-altering beam would wear off, but they didn't. Instead, he was trapped in this awkward, mating-induced fog, surrounded by alien species who had no idea what to make of the situation. It was now clear to everyone that the two were together. No one questioned it anymore. Every interaction, every moment, was another confirmation that the human and the alien girl were a thing, despite the fact that neither of them had any idea what was going on. The bystanders now looked at them with curiosity, some with smirks, others with confusion. The aliens in the room, who usually prided themselves on their knowledge of human social interactions, had no frame of reference for this situation. The human's face had never been redder. He was practically glowing with embarrassment. Every glance toward the alien girl made his heart race, but not in a normal, logical way. His brain, flooded with hormones, had become a pit of illogical thoughts. He couldn't stop himself. The moment his eyes met hers, he couldn't help but blurt out things that were clearly far beyond the bounds of acceptable social interaction. He had tried to change the subject, tried to focus on anything that wasn't her, but it didn't work. His mind kept coming back to her exotic features, her mesmerizing way of moving. It was like he had no control over his thoughts. And every time he tried to take a breath to calm himself, he only found himself becoming more obsessed with her. As he stood there, completely miserable and trying to make himself invisible, the alien girl gave him an exasperated but amused look. "I think you need a break," she said with a sigh, raising one of her tentacles to smooth out her shimmering skin. "You're still not making sense, and I'm starting to feel like everyone thinks we're together." The human froze. His thoughts raced. Together? But that wasn't, was it? He hadn't meant to be this forward, hadn't meant to act like an uncontrollable mess, but it sure looked that way. He rubbed his neck nervously, muttering, "No! I mean, we're not together, just, this is just, an accident." Her expression softened slightly, and she gave him a small smile, though it was still tinged with a bit of uncertainty. "An accident, huh? So you didn't mean to constantly compliment me in such weird ways?" Her voice had a playful edge now, and for the first time, the human realized that she wasn't angry. She wasn't repulsed. She seemed amused. No, I didn't mean to," he stammered, but then his eyes locked onto her tail again, and the floodgates opened. "I mean, look at your tail, it's just so sleek and graceful. I can't stop thinking about how it moves." He wanted to die on the spot, but the words kept pouring out like a dam had broken inside of him. Her tentacles twitched in confusion, but she didn't say anything immediately. She just stood there, letting the awkward silence hang between them. The entire room was watching them now, half curious and half entertained. Some of the more enlightened aliens were snickering, and the humans in the crowd just stared at the poor guy like he was a walking disaster. The alien girl, sensing her opportunity, decided to have a little fun. "So if you like my tail so much, maybe you could, show me what your species thinks of as graceful. I'm really curious how humans manage to stay so steady on their feet." Her voice was casual, but there was a knowing glint in her eyes as she tilted her head slightly. The human, still dizzy from the confusion and the overwhelming rush of attraction, was totally unprepared for the challenge. "Well, humans, we're not so bad with, balance, right?" he said, but before he could finish the sentence, his foot caught on the edge of a table, and he tripped. Instinctively he reached out, his hands landing on her waist to catch himself. The alien girl froze at the contact, but rather than stepping away, she felt his hands on her, and for a split second she wondered what it would be like to experience a human sense of touch. She felt the awkwardness, but it was different. His hands were shaky, and he immediately pulled away, his face now the color of a ripe tomato. "I'm so sorry," he blurted out, backing away quickly. "That wasn't, oh God, I didn't, please don't." But the more he tried to apologize, the worse the situation got. Every word made him look like an even bigger idiot. For a moment there was silence. Then the alien girl laughed softly, shaking her head. "You're something else, aren't you?" she asked, her voice warm but still amused. "You know, most species would have just stayed far away by now. But you just keep getting yourself tangled up in all this." The human blinked, his mouth hanging open, unsure how to respond to her words. He had thought she might be angry, but now it seemed like she was actually entertained. It didn't make any sense. How could she still be smiling? Well, I just didn't know how to. He started, but she cut him off. No need to explain, she said with a grin. Honestly, I'm starting to get the feeling that this whole thing was meant to be a lesson for both of us. The human felt his brain go blank. What did she mean by that? Was she mocking him? Or was she actually teasing him? I'm not sure I'm learning anything at all, he said slowly, still unsure if he was being mocked or teased. But yeah, this is a lot for my brain to process. Well, it's definitely something, she replied, her eyes scanning the room. Let's just say that the next time I see you, you might want to keep the compliments to a minimum. You're lucky I don't find them completely ridiculous. Her teasing tone sent another wave of heat through him, and he opened his mouth, but no words came out. He was completely lost, caught between the absurdity of the situation and his own overwhelming attraction. It was like he had no control over his words anymore, and every time he opened his mouth, something more embarrassing spilled out. But as the evening wore on, he began to notice something else. Despite everything that had gone wrong, the alien girl seemed to be more at ease with him. There was no longer any hostility, or even confusion in her gaze. There was just understanding, or maybe curiosity. He wasn't sure. But for the first time that night, he started to feel like he wasn't entirely alone in his awkwardness. Maybe, the alien girl said, her smile growing a little more genuine. We should see what happens after this event. Maybe you won't be so bad after all. The human swallowed hard, trying to keep his composure. Maybe, he agreed, a little less flustered than before. But deep down, he knew that whatever happened next, he was definitely in for more awkwardness. And maybe, just maybe, he was starting to like it. By the next day, the rumors had only grown. The human and the alien girl were now the talk of the space station, and no one knew what to make of it. The human, still a bit dazed from the effects of the mood-altering beam, found himself the subject of hushed whispers every time he walked down a corridor. The alien girl, who had been nothing but poised and composed during the event, was now caught in the crossfire of his unintentional flirtations. Despite everything, there was a certain awkward charm to the situation. The alien girl was no longer confused or upset. If anything, she was oddly entertained. She found herself looking for the human at every turn, not because she was fascinated by him, but because his awkwardness had somehow made him more endearing. She had grown accustomed to interactions with beings who were overly serious or stoic, but the human? He was a walking disaster, and that made him strangely refreshing. The human, on the other hand, was terrified. Every time he saw her, his brain started to spiral into a mess of inappropriate thoughts. His body reacted before he could think, his face flushed, his hands twitching. Every time she said something, his mind defaulted to flirtation, and every time he tried to apologize, it only seemed to get worse. He knew he had to do something. But what? How could he fix a situation where everyone assumed he and the alien girl were an item, despite the fact that they were anything but? His entire body screamed at him to run, to hide, to pretend it never happened, but that wasn't an option. They had already gone too far for that. So, he decided he had to confront the situation head-on. He had to own it, even though it felt like the worst possible idea. He was going to approach her. No flirting, no weird compliments, no awkward pauses. Just a normal conversation. He found her in the station's common area, sitting alone at a table, her violet scales shimmering in the light. She looked calm, composed, but something in her posture told him she was waiting for him. He took a deep breath, and with grim determination, he walked over to her. Hey, he said, his voice steady despite the storm of nerves crashing inside him. I think we need to talk. She looked up, raising an eyebrow. About what? The fact that everyone thinks we're dating? Her voice was light, teasing, but there was something beneath it that hinted she wasn't as unaffected as she appeared. Exactly, he said quickly, almost too quickly. I mean, this whole thing is a misunderstanding, right? We're not, together. He rubbed his neck, instantly regretting the words as they left his mouth. The alien girl stared at him for a moment, a small smile tugging at her lips. Really? Because the way you've been talking to me makes it seem like we're already an item. You're practically writing love letters with every word you say. The human's heart skipped a beat. I swear I didn't mean it like that, he said, his voice high-pitched with panic. I mean, you're amazing, but this is all because of that stupid beam, right? It's messing with my head, and I didn't mean to act like this. Her smile widened, and for the first time, he could see that it wasn't mocking, it was genuine amusement. Oh, I know. I can tell. You've been a mess ever since it hit you. But you're kind of cute when you're flustered. The human stared at her in disbelief. Did she just call him cute? I don't know what's happening to me, he muttered, suddenly feeling vulnerable. I've never been this out of control before. And it's just, I can't stop thinking about you, and I can't stop talking about my tail. She finished for him, her tone teasing but not unkind. His face burned hotter than he thought was possible. I didn't mean to. Everything about you, I don't know, it's just overwhelming. She chuckled softly, leaning back in her chair. Well, now you know what it's like to be the object of someone's overwhelming attraction. It's not always as easy as it seems, is it? The human blinked, his heart pounding. He had no idea where this conversation was going, but it seemed like she wasn't as uncomfortable with it as he was. I didn't ask for this, he admitted, shaking his head. I just wanted to help, and now look where we are. The alien girl shrugged, an odd glint of mischief in her eyes. I never said you couldn't help. I just think you're going about it in interesting ways. But don't worry. I'm not offended. Honestly, I've been around for long enough to know that humans aren't exactly known for their subtlety. Yeah, he said, rubbing his face with one hand. We're pretty bad at this whole not making fools of ourselves thing. She smiled at that, and for the first time in a while, he didn't feel quite so out of place. There was something relatable about her. Despite the alien biology and cultural differences, she seemed to understand exactly what he was going through. Tell you what, she said after a moment of silence. You're not the first human to be overly enthusiastic around an alien species. And you probably won't be the last. But for now, let's just take a step back, yeah? Let's not try to force this whatever this is and just let things play out. He stared at her, still a little unsure of her intentions. You're okay with that? She nodded. For now. It's a lot to take in. But I'm not about to judge you for being a little forward. You humans tend to get overexcited in, interesting ways. But we'll figure it out. The human let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. For the first time since the beam hit him, he felt like he wasn't about to be ostracized for being a complete mess. Maybe there was hope for him after all. Thanks, he said quietly, his voice a little steadier now. I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess this is better than I thought. The alien girl winked. It's a start, at least. And just so you know, I'm not exactly in any rush to make this into something more. But don't worry, I'll be sure to let you know if I'm interested in your awkward affections. The human swallowed, feeling a rush of both relief and nervousness. Right. Got it. And with that, the alien girl stood up, giving him a final smile before walking away. He stood there, staring after her, still unsure of everything but feeling a little less like the world's biggest idiot. Maybe he hadn't completely screwed everything up after all. Maybe this whole mess wasn't such a disaster. He had to laugh at himself. At the very least, he wasn't alone in his awkwardness anymore. Maybe that was the most important thing to take away from all of this.